All right, 21. So who am I? The fundamental question, like not just who, but what, really. It's kind of funny when I sit there and actually think about what do I know about myself that isn't something that's been acquired, a piece of an attribute that's been acquired. What attribute is natively me? And it's an interesting question because there's not a lot that we know when we're in this mind anyway, and we have to make a lot of assumptions. And we use comforting words like, "Oh, I'm a human being," but then when you try and suss out exactly what that means, you get to the same point. You don't really know. That's just sort of a covering for our experience of being. And so it's very much like trying to describe yourself from the inside out rather than from the outside in, which is what Nisargadatta says is the defining difference between a realized person and a deluded person. Is that when the deluded person describes himself, it's from the outside in, and when the enlightened person thinks of himself, as it were, it's from the inside out. And you can see immediately what he's talking about when you actually try that. When you actually try to describe yourself from the inside out, you run into your indescribability immediately. You would have to describe yourself with silence. You would have to describe yourself with awareness. You would have to describe yourself as kind of an indescribable manifestation, a physicality that's not really a physicality. And after a while, you'd get out to a body, perhaps. But it's quite fascinating. I read yesterday, or in kind of putting these lectures together for Switzerland, I was playing around, and just this Buddhist teacher said, it's not entirely true that you're not the body. He said, it's more like you are all bodies. And I really thought that was a beautiful reminder that self in me is the one that I'm talking to in the apparent you. And it's where our love is born. It's how we love each other, is through that recognition of oneness. And the more that we see that in ourselves, the more that we know this undefined individual within, before personality, before history and mind, that self, which is all the love and joy and bliss that I have to offer in this world, is the same as in you. And it's always a meeting of family when you come to know this. Everyone that you see has the intimacy of your mother, your father, your brothers and sisters, and such. So who am I? The questioner says, we are advised to worship reality personified as God or as the perfect man. We are told not to attempt to worship of the absolute, as it is much too difficult for a brain-centered consciousness. And I love Maharaja's response here. Truth is simple and open to all. Why do you complicate it? Truth is loving and lovable. And it includes all, accepts all, purifies all. It is untruth that is difficult and a source of trouble. It always wants, expects, demands. Being false, it is empty, always in search of confirmation and reassurance. It is afraid of and avoids inquiry. It identifies itself with any support, however weak and momentary. Whatever it gets, it loses and asks for more. Therefore, put no faith in the conscious. Nothing you can see, nothing you can feel, nothing you can think is so. Even sin and virtue, merit and demerit, are not what they appear. Usually the bad and the good are a matter of convention and custom, and are shunned or welcomed according to how the words are used. Boy, there's this is the importance of knowing who you are. Because as I read that list, for the first half of my life, maybe the first 2/3 of my life, that's how I would have described my experience of life, you know, empty, always in search of confirmation and reassurance, afraid of inquiry, which is the whole reason for worldliness, is that fear of inquiry. Worldliness is the wrong solution, the ignorant solution to the pain of not knowing who we are and identifying with the body mind. And when you identify with this false, it is empty. How I have very painful memories, of stumbling home from the bars in the evening, unable to have drowned out my awareness, unable to have hidden my desperation at just a hunger for meaning, a hunger for something that was real, and knowing and nothing, and feeling at those times like there was nothing, and trying to deal with that despair. And that is the cause of worldliness. People are out there partying and drugging and, doing all of their things, not because they're bad people, but because they're stuck in this place, not knowing their nature. And so their experience of being is exactly this: empty, always searching for confirmation and reassurance, afraid of and avoiding inquiry, which is what we take all of our pleasures for. They take the mind off of inquiry. They take the mind off of the problem for a moment because you don't have an answer. You're desperate in there. It identifies with any support. Anybody likes you at all. Anybody who throws you a hand, tosses you a piece of bread, there's this wonderful immediate attachment to that. It identifies itself with any support, anything, no matter what it is, it identifies with it, no matter how weak and momentary. Whatever it gets, it loses, right? Immediately it's gone. Whatever it is, you find that person who suddenly makes you feel unalone and something, and then that relationship breaks up and in a horrible way, and you're in a worse situation. You get your great job, or all these different things that give you momentary satisfaction, a momentary sense of something, and then it disappears and you're left begging again for more. And so here's the solution: put no faith in the conscious, right? Nothing you can see, nothing you can feel or think is so. Most of us, if you sum those things up, nothing I feel, think, or see is so. Well, what the heck is so? That's quite a list right there. That pretty much blocks all of my exits. What's going on here? And so this really shows us what is difficult about spiritual life. The truth, very simple, very plain and uncomplicated. But when you take away thinking, feeling, and seeing, that's a difficulty because in our day-to-day life thus far, that's pretty much the summation of everything. And so this is what makes it very perplexing, spiritual life, and why it seems so difficult. And yet, according to all the sages, as much as it drives me crazy whenever they say so, realization is obvious. Realization is easy. There's nothing difficult about it at all. It's what you are. What's the problem? Why can't you do this? And that's the reality. And yet, it's because it's something that completely falls out of category. We don't even really understand the problem. We're just trying to figure it out. So put no faith in what you see, feel, or think. Even sin and virtue, merit and demerit, they're not what they appear. Usually the bad and good are a matter of convention and custom, and are shunned or welcomed according to how the words are used. And so this is why that practice, when you sit, don't do. There is nothing to do. When you're sitting to do your practice, you're sitting to accept. You're sitting to accept the presence of that reality. You're sitting to accept your oneness with everything. You're sitting to accept that you are ever free and ever blissful, that you are one without a second. And you don't employ any of your actions. You turn every part of yourself into a living ear, because purity and listening are synonyms. So you turn your entire self into a reception of the reality. Nothing to be done. It's just simply accepting that all is as it should be and has always been such. And in doing that, you lose your ego. Ego is diminished in that ideal, because ego is that which divides and that which is always hungry. The ego is what is born of believing untruth to be true, believing the body to be real, what you see, what you feel, and what you think. Believing those things to be real is egoism. And then identifying with them, it brings them to life and starts your wheel of samsara, your wheel of karma. And there we are, here we are, enjoying our wheel of karma. The questioner, are there not good desires and bad, high desires and low? Maharaj, all desires are bad, but some are worse than others. Pursue any desire. It will always give you trouble. Yes, pursue any desire, and it will always give you trouble. And you say, well, what about the desire for realization? Well, even that will disturb your practice. If you have a grabbing idea or an acquisition idea in your meditation, you're in trouble. You're just going to be sitting there treading water, looking for peace, which might be worse than or better than some situations. But if you go into your practice to get something, even if it's realization, if you go into your practice to get something or acquire something, you can't go forward. You can't go forward until even that is surrendered, because we love God with a pure love, expecting and wanting nothing. God for God's sake, love for love's sake. And if you approach your meditations with that, you have a key in your hand for a very important door. So no sense of acquisition. All desires are bad. Pursue any of them, and there's trouble at the end of it. Even if you get what you want, you realize it's temporary and it's only there for a short time. And that your journey, you're just sitting down on a bench for a few minutes before you have to get up and start the pursuit again. So the questioner says, even the desire to be free? Maharaj, why desire at all? Desiring a state of freedom from desire will not set you free. Nothing can set you free, because you are free. See yourself with desireless clarity. That is all. He's saying that's everything. That's all you have to do. And that's why we say when we sit, it's a sit of acceptance, not a pursuit, not a running after. See yourself with desireless clarity. That's all. That's the simplicity of all of religion. Can you imagine the nonsense of that? What a crazy idea. In all the complications that we've created of religion and spiritual life, this one thing is all that's necessary, to see yourself with a desireless clarity. And that could, because that's only possible without egoism. The ego never sees itself in a perfect state. It's always needing something. And that's why when you sit for meditation, if you're thinking, that's egoism. The ego alone drives the thought, drives the noise in the mind. And those questions will be constantly arising. It'll tell you, oh, well, try this. Oh, you should do this. Oh, your mind needs to be more quiet. Oh, you're so impure. Oh, how come you can't get this? You've been trying this for so long. There's nothing here. Let's go have a sandwich. you know, all these things in the mind. All that's necessary is to sit for acceptance. Acceptance of what? The gift. Mother wants to give you pure grace to cover all your desires. Mother wants to give you pure love to make you perfectly content and secure. That's all. You have to accept it, not come up with the reasons of why you don't deserve it or can't have it, or ignoring it, or she's got it right there in front of your face. You ever seen those kids where the mother's trying to feed them and they just suddenly turn their head? That's you and me in meditation. Mother's coming along with a nice big scoop of bliss. She's doing the airplane thing. And right as she gets it to your mouth, you get another thought. And off you go. So why desire at all? So if you catch yourself at desiring, even the simple ones, whatever they are, you should always be at least aware enough to see them, to recognize, oh my gosh, look, a desire. And then start picking it apart. Start dissecting. Get in there with your discernment. Where did this come from? Is this a relic of the body or the mind? Oh my gosh, look, it's from the body. And then as soon as you see that, then feel it. Feel it. Study the feeling of its birth in you. When that desire is born, feel that. Become very aware with it. And then when you stand in awareness of it, look right at it. Stare at it and say with absolute conviction, I'm not the body. So you don't have to be beholden to that desire, right? And so in this way, we become aware of the unnecessity of our desire. We become aware of how all of this is not necessary. All of this is a compromise. All of our life, all of our suffering is a compromise with ignorance. Questioner now says, well, it takes time to know oneself. You see, it's like immediately putting himself back into time, putting himself back into his troubles, and then insisting that it takes time, right? How many reasons do we come up with to explain our condition? And all of them are arbitrary. You have no idea about that. In one sense, there's no trouble at all. You are what you are, and you have to see it without desireless, in that desireless clarity, he's saying. So Maharaj says, how can time help you? Time is a succession of moments. Each moment appears out of nothing and disappears into nothing, never to reappear. How can you build on something so fleeting? What a great point. This moment, you can't even touch it before it's gone. It's why it seems to me anyway, and tell me if I'm wrong in this, but this is an experiment that I did. I do it all the time, actually, because I can't believe it's true. If you believe in a past and future, then it's impossible to believe in a present, right? Because at what moment does the future become the present? And at what moment does that present become the past? You see, future goes immediately to the past. There is, no matter how thin you want to slice that moment, it passes before you can name it. It's just gone. And this is why in our state of delusion, sometimes we wonder if God is real. Because in our paradigm with a past and a future, there is no God. Because God is the I am. God is the present. And so where is room for God in a mind that has a past and a future? There is no room there. And so either you have the past and future are real, and the moment is not, the present is not, or the other is true, that the moment alone is real, and the past and future are constructs. Because even though this present moment is never here, we are always here. So you see, you get a choice. You can believe that the present exists, and if it is, that is God herself, and in that is your refuge and your freedom. Or you can believe in your past and your future, in which case there is no present moment. There's just you fluttering back and forth between desire and attachment. So this is our choice. So how can time help you? It's just a succession of moments. Each moment appears out of nothing and disappears into nothing, and it never reappears. How can you build something on this? That's Jesus's parable about the wise man who builds his house on the sand, and the foolish man. Sorry, very important detail there. The foolish man builds his house on the sand, and when the winds blow and the rain pours and the storm hits, it's collapsed, falls into nothingness. It doesn't have any security, it has no foundation, nothing to stand on. And that is life without realization. You're building on the sand, on the things that are constantly changing. You go and get a big house based on a job, and then you lose the job. You develop a lifestyle that requires lots of energy and youth, and then you get old. Everything changes and always is pulling your foundation out from underneath you. So the questioner says, well, what's permanent? Maharaj, look to yourself for the permanent. Dive deep within and find what is real in you. This is a very concrete thing you can do right here. Look to yourself for what is permanent. Remember, that's my old, I should give my stories numbers and just shout the number out and you'll remember what they are. Remember that story that I told with Swami where, I read where Thakur said, that which changes is unreal. The unchanging alone is real. And I was so excited when I read that because it was concrete. I was like, finally, something that doesn't confuse me, something like, wow, that makes sense. So I immediately went to the shrine and I just sat there like a big, giant, long grocery list. Nope, that changes. No, that changes. No, that changes. No, that changes. No, that changes. And I did that for like an hour and a half. No, that changes. No, that changes. No, that changes. And I thought, well, that was a useless piece of information, Thakur. You just set up a puzzle that's missing a piece because there's nothing that doesn't change. And so I went to Swami and told him that. I was like, Maharaj, I don't get it. I said, I sat there for an hour and a half just ticking through things, anything I could think of, just trying to find something that didn't change. And Maharaj gave me this answer here. He said, oh, well, did you consider that which was looking? I said, what do you mean? He said, well, did you consider that within you that was looking for something that doesn't change? And I just felt my teeth fall out at that very moment. I was like, oh my God, that is so cool. I love that. And for just a moment, I almost caught a glimmer of that crystal. It was like, oh my God, that's what this is about. That's what this is. Finding the looker, finding and reminding you of this self that has always been you, always been there, and has always been very busy looking. Always very busy experiencing, always very busy collecting experiences, collecting memories. And in doing that, it has confused itself terribly with all the things that it has collected. How to look for myself? Good question. Maharaj, whatever happens, it happens to you. Now, why would he say that? Because that means this is what is so hilarious about this trick we've played on ourselves. Everything, literally everything, is pointing at the answer. All of it is like, because you are the experiencer. Everything you experience is pointing at you, pointing at the real, pointing at the unchanging. And you and I are skipping along the lollipop on the road and our balloon, just like, oh, where is it? I don't understand. Why is this so hard? Well, literally, when every single person that we pass is pointing at us, saying, there it is. There, there, there it is. Whatever happens, it happens to you. What you do, the doer is in you. Find the subject of all that you are as a person. Yes, this is why that silence is necessary, because the mind, even in this looking, is going to be looking for attribute, looking for a category, looking for something to name or grab or hold. And that's the point. There is nothing to grab or point or hold. It is everything. It's the fulfillment of every grab you've ever made. It's the fulfillment of every hope, every reach, every touch, every longing. It doesn't have an attribute. It is all of the attributes. It makes attributes possible. But it itself is without, because it has all of them. Right? So it's again that fullness or emptiness question. It has no attribute because it contains all attributes. And so if you have all attributes, attributes are meaningless. If you have no attributes, attributes are meaningless. And so it's either way. But that self within you, it's isness, it's being. It's nothing else. It's not something you can process through a sense or through a thought. It is the container of all thoughts and all experiences. And it's always there. That's all. See it without desire, and you will know it. Right? This is why the sages are laughing. You know, this is why they chuckle all the time when they talk, because they keep running into the absurdity of this, that we've made this huge to-do out of something that isn't a to-do. Whatever happens, it happens to you. What you do, the doer is in you. Find that subject of all that you are as a person. Questioner, well, what else can I be? Maharaj, find out. Even if I tell you that you are the witness, the silent watcher, it will mean nothing to you unless you find the way to your own being. Until you find the way to silent mind, until you find the way of silent attribution, or, and until you find well, it's not even finding. There's nothing to find. It's something that is self-apparent when you stop everything else. Stop looking. Stop assuming that you don't have it. That's the important thing. That's faith right there. At least my current definition of faith for myself. Faith is when you stop assuming that you don't have what you're looking for. So it's faith that allows you to stop assuming a wrong thing and begin assuming the right thing. Assume that you are ever free. Assume that you are ever pure. Assume that you are the recipient of the immortal infinite grace. Assume that you are the source of all the love you've ever known. Assume that love is unconditioned. It never goes away, and it never appears. It always is. You see, so that's why we sit. We sit to assume perfection. And it is faith in grace that gives that to us. It's faith in love which leads us and purifies us to that truth, that apparent reality, that I can't call it the apparent reality, that reality. My question is, how to find the way to one's own being? Maharaj, give up all questions except for one. Who am I? After all, the only fact that you are sure of is that you are. The I am is certain. That I am this is not. Struggle to find out what you are in reality. Who am I? Right? Who am I? The way that I just remembering this question, it's who are you when nothing is telling you? That's the way I like to think about it. Because when I say, who am I? Or somebody says, who are you? Immediately you can tell the ego, because the ego has lots of answers for this. Who am I? And the ego will tell you. It'll list off attributes for days at a time. And if it runs out, it'll make up some. And it just keeps going. But you're none of those things. You have to find out who you are when nothing is telling you. Not your mind, not your memories, not your likes and dislikes, not your attachments and aversions. What am I in silence? What am I without experience? What am I without memory? What am I without need, without desire? I'm doing nothing else for the last 60 years. This guy's an ornery one. I've been doing that for 60 years. It's nothing. Maharaj, well, what's wrong with striving? Why look for results? Striving itself is your real nature. You see, just remove the idea that anything needs to be done. That's what he's shooting at here. Sit there in that book, I Am Here by Thich Nhat Hanh. He goes in depth into a meditation based on this idea. It's that wonderful thing of just sitting to accept the truth. There's no reasoning necessary. There's no cause necessary. There's no conditions necessary. Just sit and be open. Accept God's love. Accept the presence of divine love within you. Accept that you're worthy by grace. Accept that nothing needs to be done by the same grace. Accept that nothing needs to be fixed by the same grace. And when you start wondering about where is that grace, then start remembering unconditioned love that exudes such a grace, that creates and permeates such a grace. And sit there and contemplate the depth of that love and accept the infinity of love. Accept the freeness of it. Accept that it is. And in that, you. What is wrong with striving? Well, striving is painful. Maharaj, you make it so by seeking results, right? You actually want attributes from the attributeless, and so you suffer. You want to know what you are in words, in time, space, and causation. You have an expectation of what the answer is, so you don't find it, and you suffer. And you think something is wrong. It's not there. I can't find it. I'm unworthy of it. What do I need to do? And then that anxiety starts taking over, and that desperation starts taking over, and that unhappiness starts taking over, and then it just becomes a pounding on the wall. Don't seek results. Strive without seeking. Struggle without greed. Right? So it's just just a shove, like a duck when it gets out of the water and it does that little flick of all of its feathers at the same time, and all the water just comes off, and then it's just a duck. this this is what we're doing when we come out of our ignorance. We just give a big shake of all the feathers, and then we just are. We are all that we sought. We are all that we wanted. We are all that we hoped for. It'll never. It can't be taken away. It's ours by birthright. It can't be withdrawn. It has never left us. That bliss of the divine love has been present in us for eons. I remember I had a good chuckle one time in a meditation right there in DC. I was sitting in the shrine and I was getting bored. I was sitting in there trying to do my practice, and I was just like, oh, God, this is so boring. And when I said that, I needed this voice. I don't know, you never know where the voices come from in your head. I like to think they're mother, but I just felt inside mother laugh. She laughed a good laugh. And she says, you have been sitting here as the witness for thousands upon thousands of years. And now you're bored. And I just loved that. I just loved that because it is, as soon as that thought occurred to me, I thought, wow, that is what I seek. That awareness of me as the contented observer, the contented witness, who has been able to sit and watch life after life after life after life after life after life, and to still smile, still feel bliss and joy and wonder, that eternal self is perfect as it is. Striving is painful. Well, you make it so by seeking results. Strive without seeking. Sit to accept. Non-resistance. Don't listen to a thing the ego stirs in the mind. Sit to accept the reality of your own love. Strive without seeking. Struggle without greed. Why has God made me as I am? Which God are you talking about? Which God are you talking about? Oh, and by the way, what is God? Is he not the very light by which you ask the question? I am itself is God. The seeking itself is God. So that frustration we feel in that seeking, do you see the joke? Do you see the trick we've played? The seeking itself is an expression of the divine. It's present even in our seeking. But our seeking is not about the seeking, it's about the results. And so we do not experience the joy of seeking, the bliss of simply being and watching the infinity unfold in every changing moment, never to be repeated, continuous. The seeking itself is God. In seeking, you discover that you are neither the body nor the mind, and the love of the self in you is for the self in all. The two are one. The consciousness in you and the consciousness in me, apparently two, are really one. Seek unity, and that is love. Yeah. So know this beautiful, shining, infinite love, and you'll love everyone. Because once you see it in yourself, it cannot be denied in other. It's everywhere present, and always perfect. How am I to find that love? Maharaj, what do you love right now? What do you love right now? I could go through and use each name, Tunga, Maya. What do you love now? The I am. Give your heart and mind to it. Think of nothing else. This, when effortless and natural, is the highest state. He just told you in very clear terms what Nirvikalpa Samadhi is. In it, love itself is both the lover and the beloved. Both are contained within you. And that's ecstasy when the lover and the love meet. It's that infinite circle, just falling in on itself as it is forever. Our experience is that tumble of love, falling in love with love. Blueberry. Do you guys know Blueberry? We have a neighborhood cat. He's just found my window. He's for the whole year I've been here, he's been coming to the front door for a little treat every single morning. And, but I was safe in the house. But just now he found my window and he is now sitting out there waiting for my treat through the window. What do you love now? The I am. Give your heart, give your mind to it. Think of nothing else. This, when effortless and natural, is the highest state. In it, love itself is the lover. Love itself is the beloved. And the two exist in you. That divine God that you love so much is within you. And the love that you have for this divine God is that God. They are one. No effort, no expression necessary, no fulfillment necessary. Both are there. Accept them both simultaneously. And that explosion is realization. When you realize that the lover in you is not separate from that which it loves. And so it doesn't have to be expressed. It doesn't have to be spoken. It doesn't have to be done. That when love and the lover are one, that is the highest state. Questioner. Well, everybody wants to live, to exist. Is it not self-love? All desire has its source in the self. It is all a matter of choosing the right desire. What is right and what is wrong varies with habit and custom. Standards vary with societies. Maharaj, discard all traditional standards. Leave them to the hypocrites. Ooh, ouch. Leave them to the hypocrites. Only what liberates you from desire and fear and wrong ideas is good. As long as you worry about sin and virtue, you will have no peace. Right? We don't have to worry about sin and virtue because we are virtue itself. Right? All of the duality of it is just the mind. Right? Just ideas. And when we're just going around pushing ideas around, we're not going to find what we're looking for. We're rummaging through the wrong box, right? The box of the mind does not hold the gem you are looking for. So shuffling through it over and over and over again, organizing it according to this philosophy and according to that philosophy and according to this text and that scripture, rummaging around in there has no value except for one, to realize it's not in there. And once you've realized it's not in there, and you think, well, where else am I going to look? The truth is, there is nowhere else to look. And what do you do then? You sit down. And you're like, I just don't know where else to look. And when you sit down, you feel it right there in your pocket. That cell phone you've been looking for all over the house, right? But you had to sit down and be quiet to become aware of it. And so that's what we're up to. We're rummaging and rummaging through the box of the mind, through philosophies and religions and deities and gods and goddesses and experiences, lists of truths and falsehoods, taping them to our walls, painting them in pictures, writing them down so we're sure not to forget them, tying them in the corner of our dhoti, busy as mad bees, trying to find that which we carry within us. So discard all standards of right and wrong that are traditional. Leave them to the hypocrites. Only what liberates you from desire and fear and wrong ideas is good. As long as you worry about sin and virtue, you will have no peace. Questioner: I grant that sin and virtue are social norms, but there may be also spiritual sins and virtues. I mean by spiritual, the absolute. Goodness, this is a confused question. By spiritual, I mean the absolute. Is there such a thing as absolute sin or absolute virtue? You wonder, this guy, it sounds like every question he has is the first question he's ever asked. Like, he's not gathering any of this information together at all. Maharaj, sin and virtue refer to a person only, right? When you become a particular, then the sun has a direction and the shadow has an appearance, right? But when you don't have a direction, when you don't grab a particular, where is your shadow and where is the sun? You know, there is no cause and effect when you see the whole. And if there's no cause and effect, there's no karma, right? So expand. All expansion is life, Vivekananda says. All expansion is life. That is what will show you the truth. When you're able to expand yourself beyond your sense of a particular, by going inside and dropping the body and dropping the mind, and finding yourself in a silent infinity pregnant with bliss and wisdom. Sin and virtue refer to a person only. Without a sinful or virtuous person, what is sin or virtue? At the level of the absolute, there are no persons. The ocean of pure awareness is neither virtuous nor sinful. Sin and virtue are invariably relative. Questioner: can I do away with such unnecessary notions? Maharaj: not as long as you think you're a person, right? As long as you're holding on to and clutching this idea of a particular, that's coming, it's up to you to decide, where is your sense of particular coming from? It's not coming from you. It's coming through attachments. Why is it that you want to be a particular? Could it be because of fear? You know, if you were infinitely large, how could you manage that? If you were infinite, how could you manage that? By what sign shall I know that I am beyond sin and virtue? Maharaj: being free from all desire and fear, from the very idea of being a person. To nourish the ideas, I am a sinner, I am not a sinner, is sin. See, so to nourish, to add anything to your I amness, to add any attribute to it, that is unhelpful. That will lead you on, that will start your goose chase, right? The problem with this goose chase is there's no goose. So to nourish the ideas, I am a sinner or I am not a sinner, is sin. Okay, so think about that. How often do you nourish your bad ideas about yourself? How often do you nourish the idea that you're not realized? How often do you nourish the idea that you're ignorant? How often do you nourish the idea that you're old, that you're young? How often do you nourish the idea that you're a mother or a father or a brother or a sister or a daughter or a son? All of these things, to nourish them, to feed these wrong concepts, that is the sin itself, he's saying. That's the thing that's unhelpful to you. So when you sit there and nourish the idea that you're not realized, you nourish the idea that your mind is whacked out and won't be quiet, to nourish the idea that there's anything to be done, that anything has to be changed, to nourish any idea that this moment isn't exactly as it should be. This is where we go wrong. When we allow the ego, in its ignorance of what is, to try and create what is. To identify oneself with the particular is all the sin there is. The impersonal is real. The personal appears and disappears. I am is the impersonal being. I am this is the person. The person is relative, and the pure being fundamental. So this is how we know that we have both Shiva and Shakti within us. Shiva is the I am, and the Shakti is the I am this, right? The world of attributes and manifestation. So as our unmanifested self, I am. No attribute, just I am. I am the container within which everything is. And then the I am this is the manifestation. I'm a man. My name is Thakur. My name is Holy Mother. You know, that's manifestation. But the I am is the absolute. And within you, the two are one. You are both I am. And to move your identity into that, because your identity can only be in one place or the other. If you move your identity into the I am, the silence out of beyond mind in the heart, that is realization. To keep your identity in the I am this, to keep your identity in the mind, the world of attributes and change. That's ignorance. Because it's change. It's unstable, ever repeating. But every bit of the change is always sourced in you. And so we're back to the knowledge that everything around you is pointing at you right now. Pay attention to what everything is pointing at, and you will know. All right. So pay attention to what everything is pointing at in this moment. All of the things that are changing around you are only observable from you because you yourself are not changing. If you were changing with them, that change wouldn't be noticed, like the ride in an elevator or the ride in a car with no windows. That's the I am. Look out the window and you have the I am this, right? The change. But allow everything that's changing to remind you of that which is not changing inside you. So you see, you can literally turn every single thing in the day to day into a reminder of the truth. You don't have to be deluded by it. You don't have to believe it and get caught up in it. Never forget that everything in this moment is reminding you of your unchanging self. And that will be your biggest boon. All right. We'll stop there for today.